This episode of the Wedding Film School Show is brought to you by Musicbed, the best music licensing platform for wedding filmmakers. Head over to themusicbed.com and enter our code WFS on checkout to get a free month on your annual wedding subscription. Now, on to the show.
So my look, by the way, is not a LUT. Like we didn't have LUTs. You had to create a look.
You're a little punk rock, right? A little rebellious.
Not doing things right, making mistakes, figuring things out is all part of growing.
If you're halfway decent, probably everyone who's next to you is terrible.
If there is really your own personality, really who you are in your work, then those are the couples that are going to connect with that. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately they're connecting with your work and connecting with you.
Hey guys, welcome to the Wedding Film School Show. It's just me today, and I'm really excited because I have a guest on today who I've been wanting to have on for many, many years. Someone who I really, really admire as a filmmaker, who I consider to be a friend, and who really has, I think, a lot to teach people about wedding filmmaking. Before we get to that, though, I just wanted to kind of remind everybody, we just released a brand new wedding filmmaking behind the scenes. It's a really interesting perspective. Jared actually takes on a role of a second shooter, and he kind of outlines what we like to have our second shooters do. And also maybe if you're a wedding filmmaker who's maybe not accustomed to hiring people, working with other people, maybe it might get you a little bit of a template on how you can work with other people and some just really cool ways to make your films better by having collaboration. So go check that out. YouTube, we got this new BTS and we're excited about it. We think it turned out pretty cool. It's a little different than some of the stuff we've done in the past. And so, that's what it's all about, right? Trying new things. So speaking of trying things, why don't we try this interview, Sharrone? How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. That was excellent. I have to watch that, by the way. I saw that you guys released that BTS. I want to watch it.
Yeah, well, it's a little different, it's a little different than what we've done, but it's not about us today, Sharrone. It's all about you. So how are you? How are you? Your natural light looks really nice.
It's window light. I like it. Yeah.
Sharrone, I've been wanting to have you on for a long time. I kind of was saving it, to be honest, for when I actually knew what I was doing, because I didn't want to screw it up. I kind of feel like it's one of those things where you have certain people and you need to know how to actually help them be their best self. That's kind of what interviewing people is. It's just like wedding filmmaking. It's trying to get someone to look their best. I want you to sound your best. And that to me is on me a little bit. And so I wanted to come when I was ready. So I feel when I think about people who have something to teach someone and maybe aren't I don't know, you probably wouldn't consider yourself an educator, right?
No, I'm not.
Yeah. I just don't want to say it. You can say it. I think you are you definitely can mentor people, and I'm sure you have mentored lots of people in the real world. But in terms of knowledge and what you do here, I can if you don't know her work, I don't want to speak for Sharrone, but my thing about Sharrone's work is, first of all, urban. It's shot in an environment that is, I don't work in New York City, Sharrone. I work in Boston a lot. I know those films take on a life of their own when you're in an inner city. You don't have now we're going to walk down by the ocean for sunset. Sometimes it's there is no sun. It's buildings. You have to just shoot differently. You have to think differently. And so to me, when I see your work, it just speaks of the city. I love New York City too, so it connects me to that place I love, even though it's not all New York, but a lot of it is. I feel that. I feel that connection. The second thing I always think about with your work is the interesting compositions that you're bringing. And if you've never seen her work, there's just always an intentionality to it that I think is hard to find and hard to see. And then I also think edgy. There's an edginess to everything, but also personal. It's very personal. So it's not I wouldn't call it stylized, right? Or fake. It feels very, very curated in terms of visuals, but very, very personal in terms of story. And so if you haven't seen it, you should go back and go watch your work. It's really special. And so, Sharrone, in terms of questions, like, how would you describe your work? Because I've heard a lot of other people kind of describe it. I just gave you my interpretation of it. Like, how would you describe your work? Like, do you feel like people like see it the way you do?
I think that well, that depends on if we're talking about industry or we're talking about like real people.
Interesting.
So,
yeah. I mean, maybe they see what. How do those differ?
They do differ a lot. So when we're talking about industry, like industry people, right away, they notice the compositions, they notice the light, the music always. When we're talking about like real couples, if I'll get like a couple, a couple's insight on our work, which they always share, it makes them cry. They love that we're putting like real moments in there, that they see like real stuff, real moments, not just when a couple describes it, it's like not just like a montage of thing of the kind of feel like video.
Yeah, like the typical modern kind of.
Yeah.
Which nothing wrong with that, but it is a thing.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I feel like there has to be there is definitely a very distinct aesthetic about our work that whether you're industry or a couple, you have to appreciate that kind of that look, that the whole look as a whole. To book us. We have couples that like love our work, but the it's too like dark or moody, whatever for them. Like I actually am more speaking with a bride right now. She's out in Florida, and her brother is actually in the industry. So she totally she loves the look and the vibe and what we do. But she's asking if like we can if I think that we can pull something else off, and she sent me like the photographer's work, which is complete opposite of what we do as far as no.
It's so brutal though,
because
it's like I always want to tell people, I'm like, if you really understood it, you know that person's shooting a raw image with like 4 times more color data than we are.
yeah, exactly. I mean, she didn't say it like she actually, the way that she wrote it was almost like she was felt bad about writing it. I was like, no, I'm glad that you're asking or whatever. And to be honest, they're also working with light way different than we are. And I don't know about you, but I'm learning more. So the first thing I always ask is, one of the first things I always ask, not the first thing, who is a couple, is who their photographer is.
Oh yeah, it's one of my, especially in the high end. Like
yeah. You want to. It's not even just for us, and I always say
it's for the couple, 100%, because
and the photographer,
everyone involved, like there's got to be synergy. There's got to be, and it doesn't mean that I would not do it. It just means like I think it calibrates the couple's expectations, because the real question is not like, will I work with this person? I'll probably work with almost anyone unless they're like a Nazi or something. I don't have a huge problem, but if the person's like, can you do X, Y, and Z? I'm going to say, well, based on the day, and I wouldn't say this, but who they are, no, they're not going to let me. Like, I know working with some photographers that they're going to mouse around. They're going to let the couple's schedule go totally out of haywire. We're going to have a 5-minute portrait session. They're not going to pose them at all. I'm going to get no time. And then the planner's going to be in the room looking over our shoulder, and it'll be over. Like, that kind of stuff just based on working with people. So even the look, I've had planners tell me like, well, I book filmmakers based on the look of the photographer so that the portfolio looks good when I deliver it to a publication.
That makes sense.
It does make sense. It's just like it is weird, and people need to keep that in mind. So I guess that leads to my question then, Sharrone, is because you're kind of like dancing around it a little. Like, I feel like you've made strong decisions with everything about what you do. And which, you're a little punk rock, right? A little rebellious. And so I feel like you're like in everything in you do, like there's like that personal side, right? But then there's also a little bit of that like edgy side. And you made statements and in your work that I think are strong. And so do you feel like sometimes you pay a price, right, for having such a strong aesthetic?
Yeah, definitely. But that was always the intention. So for I always knew that. I mean, even when we first started, the intent was to be, at the time the hot word was boutique. I don't know what you want to call it now, but I always knew that, and then especially getting more and more familiar, even with my own style and vibe, because that takes time. That takes time to figure.
I think that's one
out.
of the biggest things people want to skip a lot of times is they're not patient with themselves.
No, I mean, especially today, it's hard. I feel that. So when we came into the industry, we didn't have Instagram and Facebook. We had Vimeo. So I think I really feel for people now that they don't even have like a minute to figure themselves out, because it's the way that things are now is
there's
what
a
people
lot
are
of
striving
pressure.
for. It's a lot of pressure, and that what people are striving for is like activity, like social media activity, the likes and the numbers or whatever, and that is something that it's hard to be patient with, Yeah, I mean, even I don't feel like our numbers on social media represent at all what is actual. I don't even know how to describe it. So
social media doesn't reward good storytelling or quality imagery at all.
No. But what I'm saying is I think that we're pretty well recognized in the industry, and we're pretty, we do well as far as booking couples. And I don't know if that's probably on me too. I don't really find the time as much as like some people would. I don't even know how some people find the time to like be as active on social media or whatever. But whatever, that's besides the point.
I mean, I think the point is like that you had time to develop a look, and not just develop a look, like develop a portfolio, because brides had time. Because that's the thing. Brides and grooms, of course.
No, I feel like it's more.
They don't have time to like think for themselves. No one can think for themselves. Everyone is being influenced, and like.
That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying. What I'm saying is you don't even have time, and plus you have so much access to like there's so many outlets to like just seeing. I didn't even know how many videographers were out there in the world. You know what I mean? So you're just seeing so much, where back then you didn't really see as much. Kind of had to figure it out for yourself, We saw less, and we were inspired by, at the time, I mean, we had like some real like OGs that are now OGs. You would be inspired by it, but kind of have to figure your own sort of thing out. Now there's just way too much out there. It's hard to figure yourself out, I guess.
I guess
don't even know you know what I'm saying, right?
Like I feel like you're kind of acknowledging like I make strong statements, they get me the client that I want, right? And I always wonder, like, if you're established, I feel like that's much easier to do, right? Like if you're established to like, and it was easier to do in the past, like pretty much, if you don't know what it was like 10 years ago, you were doing this, I was doing this, right? You pretty much just put your stuff out. Maybe you do a not listing, maybe you go to a wedding show, right? There's not a lot of options, but you put your stuff out there, and if you're halfway decent, probably everyone who's next to you is terrible, right? In wedding filmmaking. It's just some guy with a camcorder, right? So if you're showing up and shooting cinematic, like you're shooting on a Canon 50mm 1.2, you're going to look like freaking Steven Spielberg, right? And so like, you know, you would be successful if you were good and you would build an audience. And like, it wasn't so much that you had like, they were comparing you to another filmmaker with that exact same gear, right? And your look was more their look. It was like, you're the only person who has a really, really beautiful image and everyone else's image is crap and you win. And so I feel like we were afforded the ability to just play like for many years. Like you're in the market, you're just playing on the market and you're working out your look, you're figuring out what works, you're building a client base, you're building connections in the industry. I feel like nowadays, like, first of all, like I'll talk to people and I'll be like, they're like, oh, I'm just really frustrated with my business. And I'm like, okay, tell me about your business. And they're like, oh yeah.
I started 4 months ago.
Yeah, I started 4 months ago and I'm not, you know, I really want to be.
I'm not where I want to be.
I want to charge $8,000 and I'm like, chill. Like, how many people have filled out your form on your website? 11 people. 11. It's like, and I feel like I do still feel though, Sharrone, like they still should slow down, regardless of how
100%.
easy it is or hard it is. I do feel like you wouldn't be where you are. I wouldn't be where I was if I was trying to make what someone else made.
No, of course not. And back then too, we didn't have. So my look, by the way, is not a LUT. Like we didn't have LUTs. You had to like create a look, you know, if you wanted loud. So my look right now is still not a LUT. It's a build of tools, you know, a bunch of shit, like literally like a build, like a building blocks. We had to figure stuff out, but I think that but listen, that goes for every industry.
Yeah,
you know
every
what I mean?
industry. We're not like poo-pooing on the modern way of doing it. We're just kind of saying like maybe now that you have all these advantages, still take the time.
You have to, and but I don't blame people for. I don't blame people for. It's just. I think that it's kind of like what's forced on us now is wanting, you know, access to everything like now and wanting everything now, and because we're seeing I don't know, viral videos that just go, you know, or it's just a whole different mindset now. But yeah, I feel like people should really not be so hard on themselves and take a minute and take time, and maybe, you know, I always say that maybe you shouldn't even just be watching like wedding video. I'm saying music
except
videos.
for the Wedding Film Critiques on Thursdays, live on Wedding Film School.
Yeah, which I thought that I was going to be part of, but
maybe you can tomorrow if you have time.
Right.
But
well, I'll definitely do it another day because that would be fun.
It is fun. I think there's no going back, right, to the bygone eras where you just had to figure it out. And there's some negatives with that too, right? There were negatives with we weren't doing things right. We were making a lot of mistakes. We did it, you know, hopefully we were able to help other people.
Yeah, but I think that's what I think that not doing things right, making mistakes, figuring things out is all part of growing and you know what I mean? It's like it's starting at the bottom, and you learn more. Where here today, there's no room for that. There's no time for that.
I even think in my head, like as an educator, and with a lot of us that are kind of trying to do this, and you know, obviously, I would love to make money off of it. I would love to be able to do this. You know, I often reflect on like as an artist, you know. I hate uniformity. Like I like uniformity of quality. Like I think there should be more standardized quality. I think there should be more uniformity of like pay, the parts of it that I think are undergirding it. But the art, right? I don't like that. But and even the methodology, like when people try to ask me like they always like, how do I build a studio? And I'm like, I have some things I think I could say. Just like if someone said, how do I get your look, Sharrone? It's like, be me. Like,
Uh,
you
yeah.
know, it's like,
So
who are you?
Yeah.
Is the question. What
But
do
that-
you want to do?
that's- Right, exactly. And like I always say that. I always say that I feel like when someone is honest with their work, and when I say honest, it's like a friend of mine doesn't like the word genuine because it's so wrongly used. But I mean sincerely genuine.
I feel vulnerable,
Like
when they're vulnerable.
yeah, like when your work is when your work is honest, like it's pretty much who you are. Like you could tell something about someone from their work. And I think that there's something you can't even put your finger on it, but like there's something in that work that you're kind of vibing with. You feel it. You feel it, you know. And when it's not honest and it's something that you're just trying to do, it doesn't really there's something about it that's just not, there's something.
Well, it's
like
if you're talking to someone like in a conversation, right? And you feel like they're working you, right? You feel like they're angling you. You feel like they're not being themselves, like a car salesman, right? Like that guy's not happy to see you.
Right.
He's not happy to see you.
And
And when he tells you he's happy to see you, it feels bad. Like you would rather him say to you, like, I'm happy that you came in here and I'm going to try to sell you a car and I want your money. Like that would feel better than, oh, wow. You know?
Exactly.
And,
it's true. That's true.
And I think like wedding filmmaking is a really interesting thing because there's your perspective, right? Superimposed over an actual thing that happened. And so everyone's goal should be, I think, to communicate the couple to the world, to their friends and family. But yet at the same time, there's so many ways your perspective layers on top of that. And I think that's what's challenging for people is like, there's two parts, I think. There's like, because I work with a lot of young people shooting weddings. Like, you know, typically we don't let someone really touch a camera till they've assisted like 50 weddings, right? It's like, because I know the actual thing that they are totally floored with is the pacing of the day. And like the whole thing is like, they can't even think about where to put their camera. It's just overwhelming them. And I think like you got to get through that stage, I think, before you can become a real storyteller. Like you have to not be floored by it anymore. Like it has to be like when you get into the batter's box, like a professional baseball player is like, they look and the ball slows down. And all they think about is that swing. They're not thinking about the ball anymore. They're thinking about the swing, you know? And it's like, or they're keeping their eye on the ball, whatever their process is. But like, they're not thinking, then I got to lift my foot. Then I got to do this. And that's what you do at the beginning of filmmaking is like, you're like, I got to put my camera, which is why I think like people are so interested in, back to you is like, oh, Sharrone uses tripods. I should use tripods. Sharrone does this. I should do this. Sharrone uses lens babies. I should use lens babies. Like, because they're just trying to figure out a way to make it easier. Because like the day comes and they're like, what is a good shot? I don't know what a good shot is. Sharrone uses this. And then they just do it. And like, I don't think that's terrible, but I do think that's part of the learning process. Don't you think is like that imitation time and figuring out who you are?
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course. We all did that, you know. I don't know if like somebody saying like, oh, Sharrone uses lens baby, I'm gonna use lens baby to make it easier. I think they just like the look.
Yeah, that too.
So yeah. So the whole tripod monopod thing is truly, and I say that I used to actually have work a little bit with a slider and a glide cam.
I miss sliders, by the way. That's a good look.
It's a good look. It's a great look.
It's the best looking table.
It's a fucking great look. It's an awesome look, and so are gimbals and everything that everybody uses. I'm just not a good multitasker. I did use that stuff, and I will get little nuggets out of it. So eventually, you know, and I worked with people that kind of like, you know, I worked with some friends that weren't using it. So I just sort of.
Well, you hit on something. I want to dig in a little, like, because it was talking about like, hey, people are just trying to simplify the day, which I think is, of course, like That's part of the learning, right? Give yourself that period in your career where you can just screw up a lot. Is really what I'm saying. Like simple.
Yeah.
But
We still screw up.
all the time. Literally, like I will double pump my camera. I literally missed an entire recessional last year.
Or hit record when you think you actually hit stop when you think you're recording or.
Yep, it's bad. Everybody does those things. But I was going to say to you,
everybody does that.
Like, I think there's a common theme in most artists. There are artists who thrive on complexity. Alex Douglas, but I think,
what was that?
but I think most people are like thriving on creating simplicity and process so they can thrive in their creative side. So do you feel like for you, like a lot of your creative decisions come down to like cutting the noise?
Oh yeah, 1,000%. But you know what? That's actually part of my personality too. Mm-hmm. Like I'm like that in real life. I'm like the person that like my son does his homework with like music on. I can't even have a conversation if there's music on in the background. Like I'm not good at that. I'm not good at that's the whole funny thing is that I'm not good with commotion. And like weddings are like so much commotion.
Yes,
but
that's like the definition of weddings, right?
Yeah. It's funny. But in real life, like I do not do well in commotion. Like so it makes sense that I like simplicity. I look, even how I dress, I'm always in black. Like I am just.
You and my wife would get along.
It's the easiest thing, you know. I try colors, but no, that's pretty much. I even feel like our whole, you know, even our, I think our whole look is very. I don't know if you want to call it simple or minimal, but I guess it's kind of clean-ish. But that's part of my whole personality.
Cut the crap, right? Cut the crap.
Cut the crap. Yeah. I don't like schlepping things. Even with the stuff that we do have, we do a lot of schlepping. There's so much gear. There's so much shit. And
but isn't that interesting how like your decision, like, because we do the same thing. Like my entire rig is dependent on, I want to bring one Pelican. So whatever can fit in that case, that's my look.
That's what's going. Yeah.
That's my look is like, yeah, I think it's really interesting. You know, here's what I'll say though, that is also interesting is like, so the way my company works, I'm like the last guy, or I'm shooting like for planners. But so typically when it comes to the gear loadouts, right, we want to give most of our younger, more inexperienced people the same gear every week because we want them to show up and not have any variables. We want them to just know what to expect. So that means I get left with all the random stuff. So when I shoot a wedding, I literally have no idea what's going to be in my case. I just open it up and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm doing this today. And like, so, but it's funny is like, it still looks like me.
Yeah, well, because you have a way of shooting. If you're going to give me, if I'm shooting on, at a beach, or somebody actually said this to me, like we had a beach wedding. You know Kyler Lopez? You know Kyler?
Ish.
He's in the industry. His wedding was on a beach. And I feel like even that wedding, like the look, even though it's a beach and not like, you know, a dungeon in New York, like a dungeon looking venue in New York, it's still the same sort of vibe look, because if you really like are who you are, then no matter what equipment you're using, no matter, you know, what location you're shooting at, no matter what's thrown at you, you're still gonna, you know, do what you do. That's why with that bride that I was telling you about, the one out in Florida, you know, I didn't want to promise her anything. If you know, she was showing me someone else's work in terms of color and light, and I just don't feel confident promising something that doesn't come naturally to me. I can definitely, you know, I can accommodate requests
You do your best.
100%. Yeah, I can accommodate like anyone's request. Like we do get like we've had before, requests of like maybe not so much dark in the foreground, or or maybe not so dramatic. We've gotten those requests, and so we do what we can to accommodate certain requests. Of course, we want to.
I always find that to be strange, though. Like
no, I don't.
Well,
really,
no, let me hear me out on
it.
this. Why bother calling someone if you don't like how their films look? Like, it's just strange.
Well, no, it's not. No, that's not. No, will never get that. We don't like how your thing looks. Can you change everything about what you do? It's like we love what you do, but and that's why they call us, and that's why they even ask in the first place, because they also, we also get where we also get couples that are torn because they love the editing, they love the storytelling, they love they love everything, but maybe they just don't like how moody it looks. But so it depends on what is requested, whether or not I'm actually like, I'm not going to promise someone something that I don't feel will come naturally to us, because number one, I'm not comfortable shooting something that doesn't come natural, like shooting in a way that doesn't come natural, because especially it's a live event anyway, there's enough stress on it. There's enough to think about, there's enough to process for us as shooters to process on that day, and then to try to think of like, oh, am I even doing this the way they want? Like that's a whole other, that adds a whole nother layer. So like if you're giving me something where it's not really our color, it's not really the way that we work with light, I wouldn't feel so confident.
So the question I have then is, like, when it comes to other people, right? Where's that line, right? Between sticking to your guns and doing what you believe in, and not just what you believe in. I think a lot of people get hung up on the belief
but it's
side.
That's not even,
it's what you're good at.
Not even, right, or comfortable
with. Or have experience with, whatever it is.
Right,
like,
exactly.
But doing you, whatever that means, and then also being accommodating, and like, where's that line? Like, and maybe not for you, but just in general, like what should someone do if people are asking them like these same questions, especially people with a very stylized look, because I think there's mainly those people.
So I think that, like, if obviously, listen, if it's a situation where you're being asked to, and like it's almost kind of like where you feel like offended, that's a whole nother story. So we're not even talking about that. We're talking about like not feeling offended. You're being asked to, like, if you can do something that doesn't come naturally to you, that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, and let's imagine these people check all the boxes. You like them a lot. It's a good gig.
Right, exactly. So again, like, I've been in those situations, and I have been able to accommodate those things. I've been comfortable with accommodating certain things. But if I'm given something like a request in the kindest way, again, it's only a situation where I don't feel confident that I may be able to deliver what this person is asking me to deliver. Then you're in a situation where, and I would love this wedding, love it, absolutely love it. But is that really smart for me?
Yeah.
Is it really fair, even for the couple, to promise them something that I might not be able to do, really? I can try to force myself to do it, but like, I don't bake very good, and so I can't promise you like delicious cookies even if I follow the recipe,
Yeah. You might try to do it for free, but you're certainly not going to sell a cookie.
Yeah, I can't promise you the cookies.
I think it's really about, what I think is interesting about you, and I think people should hear this, and I'll interpret you for people, and correct me if I'm wrong. But
I just want to make this clear. I cook very good.
Yes, but baking is hard.
but I don't bake.
Oh, I'm a great cook too.
Moving
I don't
on.
bake either. But you
Yeah, so there's a whole different
give
monster.
me something else and I can do it. But I think like what I would want people to hear is like there's this juxtaposition between defining yourself, and some of that is what you enjoy and some of that is what you're good at, right? And what you have experience with, and making people happy. But even in the defining of your own brand and your look, it's really about other people. Everything is about other people. It's like, I'm going to make something that these people will love, not I'm going to make something that I love. And I think it is important to like your work. So I'm not saying that's not, that's meaningless, but I do think like if your attitude is, I want you to love it, and I know some people will love this, you know, like there are people who love this look. Okay, great. I think where some people get off track a little as filmmakers and as artists is, you know, they think that the look is about satisfying them and hopefully someone else likes what they like, instead of the look is about making a couple super excited and blowing their minds. And so, you know, and you think, I like this, and I think a lot of other people will like it. Like, it's like a connecting moment, not a like isolating moment. And if your attitude is like, I'm trying to make people happy, you're going to be much more easy to be flexible and you won't be offended. Versus like when you think like they're violating me as an artist, they don't appreciate me. I would never work with someone who doesn't value me. And like you kind of see that attitude crop up from time to time. And I think like that's so harmful to learning. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, so there's, and I'm sure that this is what you mean too. So you definitely don't want to feel like you're not valued, you know, or what you do is not valued or appreciated.
I would say I don't want to feel disrespected. Like, I don't want to feel disrespected. I don't really care if they like my look if they don't want to buy it though.
Right. So, we can't take ourselves that seriously. I feel like it's important to stay true to, and I do say this all the time. It is important to stay true to who you are, and of course, feel creative, you know, to an extent, because that's what will keep you inspired. You obviously want to be inspired to create something amazing. Otherwise, I mean, for some people, we're talking about like, so we're talking about a very specific like form of wedding videos, you know, like not just like, because there are those studios that are just like pumping stuff out and making money, and that's freaking awesome. You know, they're just kind of like they're filming, they're editing, and they're delivering. They're not really overthinking creativeness or taking time to like.
Well, and I think it really is more about like,
we're
if
talking
you are
about like
trying to make something that, because when I look at, I'm a money guy, right? So if you say like, oh, I made this film,
right, and don't you have like both? You have both types of studios, right? You have your higher end, which is more creative, and then you have your more something where you're just like you're making money. You know, you're not thinking, overthinking. You're just you're booking, you're shooting, you're editing, and sending it out, and they love it.
Yep. But I think there's a person, it really is all about money though. It's like that person's willing to pay more for more of your time, more of your creativity. Exactly. It's really about the client again, because that client who's like, so I have 3 brands, right? At 3 different price points. My entry level brand, those clients are not willing to pay. They don't care about how their film looks. So they don't, and so like we give them what they're willing to pay for. We shoot it in a way.
But that studio does well though. It
does pretty well. It does fine. It actually doesn't do as well as my more high end product because there's a stronger aesthetic there. But it is one of those things where it's like I just know that like at the end of the day, I'm delivering something that makes people happy at all levels, and that's my motivation. Is like I want you to be happy. I want you to be happy. I want you to be happy. Like that's what makes me happy. What makes me happy is that you're happy and that you tell everyone that I gave you a great wedding film and you love it. And when you watch it in 20 years, it makes you cry. Like that's what matters to me. And so like when I think about like people who are defining their success and failure, and I do think it's great to make a strong impression though. And so like, I feel like you make a polarizing impression, like in it and on purpose. Like someone's going to look at your work and go, I don't want that. Or that speaks to me. That speaks to me. Right. And so at the end of the day, like that person is more delighted than they ever could be by a more generic look. Like you've like unlocked that person by showing them something that speaks directly to them. Right. And that's what I always think about is like at the end of the day, like it is about us as artists. But if you think about your art as a gift, I think you'll be a lot more gracious when you understand like that someone is going to get what you make and it's going to change their life.
And I feel so the thing is too that if there is really your own personality, really who you are in your work, then those are the couples that are going to connect with that. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately they're connecting with your work and connecting with you. So there's similarities between those couples and you, because they're appreciating something you're putting out that's really kind of like who you are. So for me, there's a lot I feel like in the work that I put out, which is like a very specific aesthetic. It's not always that serious. It goes from, if you watch some of our stuff, there's like it'll be like dramatic, and then I'll stick in like a funny moment in there, or like some kind of like comic relief, but that's the couple. It's me. And so, and then the other thing is too, that when other couples connect with our work, they're connecting with those couples that are in our work that are really like connecting with me as a person, because myself, like me, who I am, is in that work.
So I want to switch gears a little before we kind of close out, and I want to talk a little bit about.
Did that make sense though? Like,
100%. Well, okay. I feel like that is what it is, right? Is like I can see it on a different level, right? Because we did 220 gigs last year, and like, I'm not there at the wedding, but it's my and Jared's vision, right? Like every film is our vision, right? And when you see it, you're like, there's a common thread, and the couple, and it's hence why we work with a lot of the same types of couples, because they are like that. Oh, that represents me, right? And I think like that's such a cool part about our art is like I'm making a representative art that like speaks for another person's perspective, and we're connecting in a shared perspective. And it's like, if you aren't making a strong statement with your work, you're not going to get couples that you connect with. So I would say like, you should make a strong statement. Like I'm not saying you should make a non-saleable product that is like so weird. Right. Some people, they're like, I'm going to be more edgy. And it's like, there's no market for that, dude. Stop. Like make some. Yeah,
they don't. Yeah.
Like, I don't recommend my stuff, that.
Like I know it has a limit of like people that actually will book like what we do.
Yeah. And I think there is a line, right? Like you got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And so I would never say like, you're a sellout. It's like, I think pay your bills first. And then it's more about how you market your business at that point. Like, okay, we'll start putting out the stuff that you want to get back and worry about it later. But first get your bills paid. and I think that's just my perspective. But I want to ask you about shooting, because, I think you're like one of the best shooters in the industry. Truly. And honestly, like there are just times where I'm like, how does she even see that? Like,
well, let's tell people like how we could share this.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I've done a little editing work for her. She has a brand that's, so basically like, I don't want to call it an associate brand, but she tries to create more access for more couples. So she has something that she's trying to do.
Well, it actually started because like when we were booking like rescheduled dates from COVID, we weren't we had to accommodate couples that we already had booked, but we were already booked on those days. So I had to figure out how to what to do with that. So we created another like Fiore Flicks, which is basically still the same Fiore Films team, just maybe I'm not on it.
Yeah.
So,
well, an associate brand would call it,
right.
Same
but
vibe.
You've seen the ones that I was on actually, that was my own shooting. So that's how Jason is familiar with with the shooting. Yeah.
Raw out of camera.
But I would definitely not say I'm the best.
I
know that I was even like, please don't.
I know.
When I gave you my raw footage, I'm like, don't judge me.
Only a good shooter would ever think that anyone would judge their raw footage, though. You should see mine. But I would say, like, you have.
Wait, I'll plug your service though. So Jason only did like two of my jobs, and then like couldn't take any more. But truly, like I would have loved to send you.
Okay, let's talk about next year.
Some of my other we were just there won't be a next year. I will be up to date again. So
good. Thank you though so much. Yeah, we try to deliver a good quality product for people and really understand them. That's what editing is understanding.
Yeah.
It's listening and trying to interpret people and. Just like if you're working with a couple, it's the same with the filmmaker. It's like, what would Sharrone try to do here? And it's like, try to put yourself in that place. But I think your footage is really nice and really immaculate and almost OCD, I would call it.
You think?
There's a level of just fastidiousness that like in the composition. And so like, I'm trying to like, how can people like, when you walk into a room, right, and you see in that, like, you're probably in a nice hotel, you're in the tower or whatever, and like, big windows, and like, what's the first thing you're looking for to kind of capture that moment? Are you like just shooting like a lot of wedding filmmakers, or are you more like looking around, looking for that one shot, right, and just constantly composing all day?
It depends. So if I'm walking into a hotel room, but again, all right, so this is very specific to our couple, because some couples expect more than what maybe our couple would expect. So I was doing a lot of shooting for a friend, and the way that I was shooting like for the friend, whose couple is very different than my couple.
In what way?
So they expect to see certain things or parts of the day that my couple would necessarily not care about.
By the way, so I feel like it's just couples in a certain, maybe it's not a price point, but it might be it's or certain like strata, certain types of people. Like we have a similar thing. Like
definitely
my couples don't have any expectations of what. Yeah. Like they're just basically like every so often, but it basically, especially like if they're in Boston, they're just kind of like, hey, and that's like it. They're just like, make sure you guys see the ceremony. Like other than that, they don't want to.
Well, I could tell you though, no. So like a more traditional couple, and I think it also has to do with like I think geography also, to be honest with you.
Yeah. That's a big part of it.
Like a Long Island couple expects to see expects a much more different product than like a Manhattan couple. You know what I mean? So like a Long Island, like a traditional, let's say traditional Italian, or even New Jersey, like a traditional Italian or Russian, like a family, like they'll want to see way more parts of the day than like a Manhattan couple that really has no time for anything. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it definitely has a lot to do with that. I'll say that like.
But you walk in the room, right, and you look at it, right, and you're like, what's the first thing you're looking for when you're looking to compose a shot? Maybe it's not in the getting ready room. Maybe it's anywhere. Like Like, because in my mind, like I'm imagining you like standing there staring around the room for 30 minutes and then put a tripod up and get one shot. And then like, I know that's not what it's like, but it's like, I have a, like, I love to know how people see things. Because when I walk in a room, I'm thinking, these are the moments I have to capture. Like, I'm not always thinking this is the composition I need.
No, I'm not. And I mean, you've seen the footage. Like we do shoot things that are not always as amazing as like what maybe you might see in like a 1 minute, thing on Instagram, because we are also we are documenting their day. We're delivering a lot, like a longer feature. I mean, our longest ones now are 5 minutes, but we're still documenting their day. So yeah. But if there's something, for instance, like details, the shoes, the dress, or whatever, if there's nothing special about it, if it's like in a messy room and it's not like really cool light or something, I won't bother shooting that. And I have this conversation with each and every single couple of hours before their day, because what I know that I can that I need or can pull off in an edit might not be what they have their hearts set on. So like I will have like a bride that like I really want to see I really want my shoes, so I'll make sure to get that. I'll figure it out, but typically that's not what they care about. Typically they don't care about hair and makeup. So if they're not having it done in like pretty light or whatever, I'm not gonna shoot it.
I don't include hardly any hair and makeup anymore.
Yeah, I don't
think couples, like brides who are like lawyers and don't want to be, they don't show up without their makeup on. Like half the people in their life have never seen, like, so they want to be seen as their best. So we'll wait for them to be 80% done, and then we'll
touched up, right?
Anyway,
right. But a lot of times we're not even getting that.
Sometimes I don't either if it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Right. So I mean, so it's basically the same. It's basically the same thing. Yeah, I go if I'm going into a hotel room or any room, whatever.
But I'm seeing these shots, right,
situation.
where you're composed and you have your like this great foreground, and like there's like this little sliver of light, and it's like this is what I'm trying to tell you. Like a lot of people wouldn't see that, right?
Yeah.
How do you become better at seeing opportunities to create interest, right? In your films, like not just cover it. Like you need to just cover it. That's the bare minimum. Everyone needs to get the coverage. But a great filmmaker gets the coverage and they pull out some gold. Like how can someone improve their like vision? And it's not just their vision, because like if you have infinite time, you can probably find a good shot somewhere. Weddings are like, you got to get something interesting. You got to find that gold in the middle of that common moment, but you got to be fast too, right? It's on the fly. So, so how is that something like, how can someone develop that eye so that they can enhance their films with taking a common moment and making it look special?
I think that the best way is I could tell you that first of all you have to have I'm a believer, and I know that this is like an argument constantly, but I think that you have to have something in you already. It's like a dancer that can get, there's a dancer, you could learn choreography, but then there's a dancer that knows the choreography, they can dance the dance, and then there's the dancer that can perform the dance. So I think that and the same thing goes for a musician. You could learn strings, you could learn the how to play a song, and then there's the musician that learns to play the song, but like you actually feel their whole body goes into it. They feel it, they perform it. So, and that's something that just comes from within. So I feel like there needs to be something in you to like see certain things naturally. But like for that to come out, one of our shooters that's been with us for for like 2 years now, the difference in the way that in his footage now from when he first started shooting with us and the things that he sees now and his compositions now is like, I mean, day and night. But that's not to take away from his talent, because he obviously had to have that in him in the first place to get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You have to
and
create
I feel like
space to get good.
Yeah, that's what happened with me. So like I was an editor first, and then I started shooting. I started going out there and shooting, and then I was lucky enough to shoot with some amazing freaking talented people that that helped me grow and see things differently. And but obviously, like, I had it in me to kind of like be able to catch on and sort of, you know, grab that and then perform it. You know what I mean?
Do you think someone could be a great shooter then if they're not a great editor?
Yes, I definitely think so. I think you could be a great shooter and not even touch and edit, but I don't know if like maybe you can be a great shooter in terms of like an image.
Yeah, you don't make mistakes. It's technically correct.
Yeah, technically correct, beautiful image or whatever. But I think when you're an editor, you kind of understand certain things that are also that can help an edit. You know.
Well, it's like the difference between like to me a head chef and a line cook. Not to say that one's better than the other. Like the line cook actually might be better at chopping onions than anyone.
Right.
But the head chef has a soup to nuts, beginning to end concept of what this needs to be and what needs to go into this food to make it this way and why it's great too. And the thing I often think with people is, you know, I'm a critical person. I can be negative. I criticize, and people are like, oh, you're so nasty. And I'm always like, I'm just trying to get the best out of everything.
Judgy.
Yeah, I'm always looking and going like, this could be so much better. Jared always makes fun of me. I'm always like, this could be so much better if, right? And it's like, because I have a vision for what I want it to be. And I will say, like, it's hard to have that vision if you don't get in the edit bay. Like, how can you know what you want? Like, what are the ingredients I need to make this recipe? Like, if I don't taste my food. And if I'm not the one at the end of the day making it, like, so I think that is an interesting, like, because
that's actually a great analogy. You know, I'm like always making a food analogy. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
How do I know? Right. How do I know it goes into my food if I'm not tasting it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's why, like, a lot of really, like, you know, I see with Alex's work too. He's an editor. He's a good shooter. Yeah. Great shooter. But like, I think he'd probably describe himself as more of an editor. You know,
that's how I describe myself.
I'm more of an editor, and I took my editing skills in a different way. Like, I was like, okay, I can break this into a process, and I can get this done 200 times a year. I understand editing to that level. Like, this is, and what I think what all of us understand is, this is what a satisfying story is. This is what will make someone feel good, or the way I want them to feel when they watch this film. And I think that, to me, is the core element to good composition. Is good storytelling, and it helps to know where you're going to use it in the film, and editing helps. But like that piece of light, that little blast of light that's just hitting the bride, right? Okay, that's good light, right? Or bad light, or whatever, interesting light. But really, it's good storytelling. Like, it's saying, like, look at how she stands out from everyone else. She's the special person today. She's amazing. This is her day. Like, there's nuance to that light. It's not just light. It's a story.
Right.
And I think if you don't understand, like, I'll see some people like, I'm not doing table details. I'm like, why? Why aren't you doing table details? That's stupid. I only care about people. I'm like, you don't think that them choosing that letterhead is them? That is them.
Right.
Those florals are them. Everything about this venue is them. That is a story about them.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just them talking to people. That's not a more pure story. It's like, well, only them talking to people and nothing posed or nothing this. It's like, cut the crap on that. Just forget about all that pretentious crap. People want to be communicated in a lot of different ways. They wouldn't have hired you if they didn't think you could tell an authentic story. And I think that is what seeing really is on a wedding day, is like seeing them, seeing the story behind it, and like, how do we communicate that visually? And I will say this, my practical tip or seeing things quicker, and this is just me, Sharrone, what I like to do is get rid of all the boring stuff. If I need to shoot a bunch of stuff and I'm like, I got to shoot this crap, like I got to get it out of the way. I want to just cover my bases really quick so I have more free time to be creative. And so I would say, like, if you are standing there and nothing's inspiring you, but you got some boxes to check some boxes. Get rid of, like, try to give yourself more time to be creative and don't waste time. That to me is my biggest tip on wedding days, is like, if you know you got a checklist, shoot your checklist, do it as quick as possible. Don't delay, don't stall. Just get through the shots that you know you have to get, and then breathe, slow down, and give yourself some time. And of course, be willing to be inspired. Don't be, be present, I think is what other people say. Do you feel like for you, it's more about like, I got a shot list, or it's more like, I gotta be super present?
Yeah, we don't really have time. I don't know why, but these days more so when we have this conversation all the time. Back, I would say, even 6 years ago, I feel like this, for some reason, and we have the same, we're shooting the same amount of time or whatever, but for some reason, there's just no time on a wedding day these days to like capture things, or have time to get things that we used to get back then. That we used to have time for. I don't know why. I'm not sure.
I've tried to process that a lot too, actually. I think with city weddings, I feel like there's a lot more time wasted moving from place to place.
Oh, for sure. It's a timeline situation and everything. Yeah, too. But so, yeah, and again, and that's why I always feel like we do really, really well. For some reason, Jack and I always talk about this. Our best days are the ones that we had like no time to get anything, and we're just shooting actual things that are happening.
I wonder if that's because you're like overthinking gets kind of like deconstructed, and you're just purely running on instinct.
I think so. I think so. I think I do better. I think I personally do better. Again, I'm not talking about commotion. Like that's one thing that I'm not talking about commotion. I'm talking about just like real things happening on a wedding day that are we always deal with like challenging situations where they are where it's frustrating, and I always say there's always something that goes, wrong for us. Not the couple might not feel it, or no one might feel it. It's just for us. Like, there's always something that we have to deal with. But for what we do, like us personally, and I'm not saying that this is everyone, because some people do really well shooting an elopement and directing the couple to do things, posing the couples to do things. We personally do better with like a couple that has no time and just their wedding is happening.
Yeah, I actually think like if you watch the films though, you would not know that. And I think everybody should really realize, like, that's what I do too, by the way. I make all my money shooting people who don't have time for me. And a little bit, but in general, and it's not just that they're rude or don't value us. Like, the day is packed. There's a lot going on, and they're complicated days too. And I think if you're like considering, one thing I would love people to learn is like, if you want to consistently work in high-end events, and maybe not ultra luxury, but like high-end events that are good paying events, top 2% of the market events, you got to get comfortable with just, it's not all about you. Like, really quickly. And you got to learn to make incredibly beautiful work. That is what you'll be hired for. I am hired because the planner knows they're going to go like, how did you make that with that timeline? Like, oh yeah. It was, I kind of anticipated what it was going to be. I was ahead in my mind. And like, I know where the spots are where I can get some good stuff, and the other spots where I got to sit back. that is how you succeed in the industry.
Yeah.
Is to is when you can be counted on to do great work when it's not, the conditions are a little challenging. Like, I think that's what I see all the time. So Sharrone, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you. We could have talked for hours because I think we're both Northeasterners. We both have like, a perspective but we've, there's that respect too. And so I feel like, anyone who's hearing this, like, hopefully you got something out of it. Hopefully you're, realizing, first of all, I always love it talking to people like Sharrone, because she is, I think like you're not the person that like, you're so much more approachable than when you look at this work and it looks like so out of this world. And then you talk to you and it's just not what it is. And I think realizing like that's a part of making good work, is just being a quality person, trying to be a solid person, caring about people, caring about the couples you work with. And ultimately like trying to make people happy, making art that makes people, I mean, it's super rewarding, right? How much, like, I used to play music and no one cared about my music. We would try so hard and people weren't into it. And as an artist, it was definitely like a little frustrating, because you'd be like, I want people to really value what I do and be as excited about my art. And like wedding filmmaking was like the first time I made art where I would give the person something and I could tell like I made their day.
Yeah, it's very fulfilling.
It's pretty cool.
It's challenging, and it's, many times it's flustering, and it's what we do is definitely not easy, but it is so fulfilling when you deliver something that for that couple and their family is just so special. It's a really special day for them, and when you get back that, like, we're crying and we're watching, and even when I'll get texts of like our previous couples of their kids watching the wedding video. It's just something so special. Like it really is so fulfilling. It truly is. I'm glad to hear you say that, because a lot of people, forget that part, I think.
That is the part. That's the only reason you're willing to deal with all the crap.
Some of it, like,
the money is nice too.
No, not just the money, but I think for a lot of people it's recognition and stuff like that, and that's always nice, because like you said, like when you were making music, it does feel good when there's like approve. We're artists, right? We all have like our insecurities, and so along with that comes like that like need or want of like approval and recognition and compliments and all of that. That's all great, but the most fulfilling part is what I think that what we deliver and the reactions from our
I can tell you nobody in the industry would be like, oh, what they're doing at Stop Go Love, that's great work, right? So we're kind of just like well, I know what it takes to make it, and I also know that couples love it. And so I don't really care what anybody else thinks about it. And I think, because I know what it is, and I think more people should be like that. Like, more people should just make what you like making. Let the dollars tell you how it's doing. Like, if no one's paying you ever, then maybe you need to reevaluate. But if you're getting paid and you're making people psyched and happy, like, you should be a happy person. And I would agree with you. It's like the ego part, you have to accept when you are allowing ego to run your life. And and it's good.
Ego's a good thing, because that's what keeps you going. Mm-hmm. But like what you said, where ego lets you, when ego runs your life, that's not a good thing.
No, it will make you make stuff that you set ridiculous goals, or make work that is all about you and be selfish, or
makes you ugly,
all that stuff. So I think that's what I love about your work. It's not about ego, even though you care deeply about what you make. There's that ego behind it that helps you be great, but also you calibrate the ego with humanity, and I love that. So thank you so much for coming on the show. If you enjoyed this show,
thanks, Jason.
Go ahead, hit the subscribe button, do all the YouTube stuff. If you're on a podcast platform, we know that less people do this, but if you liked the episode, you liked it, go ahead and share with some people. And of course, comment on those platforms. It helps us a lot and helps, I think, get really quality wedding filmmaking content out there. Thank you so much, Sharrone. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode. See you guys.
Thank you.